What's up, everybody? This is Cliff Seal, and you're listening to Trust in the Future, a research-driven look at what trust actually means, specifically in a marketing context, and how it's created and measured. Trust will be the most critical marketing metric in this decade. Building a brand will mean building a community that trusts you enough to advocate on your behalf, and the tactics of the last decade, data collection for a rainy day, endless tracking, endless retargeting, will not work in this decade. Now, one important note before we get started. Every bit of research and data that I cite in this discussion has a verified source, and I've personally ensured that each one of them is reasonably trustworthy. Solid research methodology, ample data, and logical conclusions. You can find every source for yourself by going to cliffseal.com/podcast and looking at this episode. You should be critical of every conclusion and underlying data point presented by anyone, and I encourage you to do the same to me. Feel free to contact me directly if you have any questions. Now let's get started by talking about this word, trust. It's a concept that's so familiar that it feels a little bit ridiculous to try to examine, but the word itself ends up doing a lot of heavy lifting, especially in research where we're trying to learn more from consumers about what trust means to them. And you can start to see how we'll strain the meaning of the word trust in these surveys, including the ones that I'll cite here. Sometimes these results seem contradictory because, honestly, we're human beings and we have complex, deeply personal relationships with trust, and we create our own sort of amorphous definitions for ourselves. But by paying close attention to the phrasing of the questions in research and by referencing several bodies of reliable research at once, we can start to make out the shape of customer trust and see its effects on behavior. We can start to see what trust looks like, how to generate more of it, and how to measure it. So let's take a look at what the state of trust was in pre-COVID 2020. I would describe it as skeptical but hopeful, and here's why. We see that 54% of consumers and business buyers don't believe companies have their best interests in mind. And that's according to Salesforce's Trends in Customer Trust research. And that's a tough pill to swallow, 54%. And yet, according to Edelman's Trust Barometer report, 81% say that trust in brands is an important part of purchase behavior. So what we see from the jump is that while there's not a lot of trust going around, people are still willing to give it. Buyers are still able to see that it's possible to trust a brand in a conscious way and act on it, even if they're not able to tell you exactly what being trustworthy looks like. This is an opportunity to earn trust for your brand, but there's no shortcut. The distrust has become cultural. Privacy has injected itself into the cultural zeitgeist as a response to this distrust. Now, looking at what these privacy-focused features are that are rolling out as part of this cultural change and seeing what they're designed to keep private can help us model trustworthy behavior. So let's start there. For instance, take a look at newer device-level features from companies like Apple. Specifically, let's look at one called Hide My Email. It's bundled into a feature called Sign In with Apple, which is already a privacy-focused response to logging in with social networks and the hellscape that we created by doing that for a while. Hide My Email provides a painless way to let Apple proxy your email address, which enables you to sign up for a service and receive email without that original service getting your actual email address. Obviously, this impacts marketing because it means that user email addresses aren't sitting in your marketing database anymore. Now, that minimizes the privacy risk to the user, and it's so normal not to trust your email address to another company that Apple themselves thought to ship their own service to prevent it. The distrust is cultural. Even further, you're seeing this sort of behavior in the web browsers that we use every day, from default cookie and fingerprint blocking to full-on tracking prevention. This is the new normal. Tracking with cookies or fingerprinting will increasingly require explicit opt-in from users. Now, we'll talk about how to ask for this permission effectively later on. But I also want you to see that not only are privacy-focused features being baked into the hardware and software that we use every day, beyond that, at least a third of the global population proactively blocks ads and uses a VPN. Privacy is not at the early adopter stage anymore. It's a part of normal culture. It's a thing that normal people talk about, and it's a part of our everyday language. Even all the way back in 2014, nearly half of Gmail users were disabling email images by default. Now, even if a user doesn't know that what they're doing is actually preventing open tracking by disabling those images, the point is that it's a privacy-focused feature built in response to distrust, and it's so normal and embedded into our culture that almost half of users had turned it on. We're not going back. People will continue to demand more from companies in order to trust them, especially with their data, but they're still willing to trust companies. Companies have an opportunity to build that trust now, and you'll get higher returns on that effort if you do it now instead of waiting for the culture, or better yet, your country, to legislate you and force you to change. Now, no worries if this is feeling a little bit nebulous at this point, because now I want to talk about what the research is really showing about trust, what it creates, and what it looks like. See, trust is highly correlated with the metrics that you definitely want moving up and to the right for your brand, right? According to the Trust Barometer report that I mentioned earlier, trust does generate attention. That's to say that people who trust you pay attention when you market to them, and anyone who's ever touched a marketing budget knows that attention normally does not come cheap. We also see that trust in a company drives conscious loyalty from the customer, along with the likelihood of recommending your company to others, a likelihood of buying more products and services, and more. We see 95% of customers saying that trust explicitly causes them to be loyal. 93% of them say that they would recommend a brand based on trusting them. In fact, we even see that brands can generate trust across several dimensions, so to speak, whether that's the product or service itself, or the company and brand itself, and further, the company's impact on society. This means that trust can catalyze an entire marketing funnel for you, from attention all the way through to advocacy. Trust drives loyalty, and loyalty drives advocacy. All of this seems great until you find out that these same customers that demand and reward trustworthy behavior by brands also expect brands to deliver a personalized marketing experience. When I mentioned the value of seeing the shape of trust across multiple surveys and reports and research points, this is sort of what I mean. Because according to Salesforce research, 76% of buyers expect companies to understand their needs and expectations. 84% say being treated like a person and not a number is very important to winning their business. 59% say explicitly that tailored engagement based on past interactions is very important to winning their business. Now, don't you need a lot of customer data to meet these expectations? You do, but it's probably a lot less than you'd normally expect, and it might be of a different type than you're used to. Customer trust and personalization in marketing are not at odds. In fact, trust seems to be key to unlocking effective personalization. In a customer experience trends report from Acquia, we see that about 80% of respondents agreed that brands should not be able to, quote, use my personal data to try and market different things to me. Now, in that same survey, almost exactly the same amount of people globally said they would be more loyal to a brand that showed that they really understood me and what I was looking for. So this is where digging into phrasing is really important, and it can illuminate some opportunity for you. Think about that phrase again from the first question. Brands should not be able to use my personal data to try and market different things to me. See, what it is that we don't want brands to take personal data and abuse it by spamming us with irrelevant messages and overall using our inboxes as target practice for generic sales pitches. Instead, trusting the brand with our data means expecting a carefully tailored experience in return. And if we get that, we'll be loyal because it's so rare. So we've talked about what trust gets us when it's present, how it moves the needle on those metrics, and how ethical personalization becomes feasible and effective when you combine it with customer trust. So now let's look at some aspects of trust itself that you can then leverage to create some. First of all, trust is control. 92% of consumers are more likely to trust businesses with their data when they're given control over what's collected. See, it's not impossible to get customer data ethically in 2020 and beyond. It just comes with expectations now. Depending on where you are in the world, in fact, you may be bound by law to offer this form of control over trusted data already. It won't help you to wait until the law makes you do it wherever you are. As you adjust to this reality, the type of data that you collect and use will necessarily shift. One way of thinking about this new ethically sourced customer-controlled data is called zero-party data. Instead of data being purchased or inferred, zero-party data is intentionally and proactively shared directly from the consumer to you. Now, on top of trust being control, trust is also value exchange. We see that 50% or more of consumers will willingly give you personal data if it leads to a more personalized experience, whether that's online or in store. Another study shows that nearly 80% of consumers say they're willing to share data if it clearly benefits them. And 60% will share more data for further personalized benefits and discounts. So the key is that you need to make the value clear to the customer so that they can decide if they trust you with their data. Tell people why you need the data to create the tailored experience that they want. Then take care of the data that they do give you, allow them a sense of control, and then follow through on the promises you made about that experience. A personal example of this type of value exchange in action for me is my willingness to give Spotify all of the data that they could ever possibly desire, so long as they continue to pump out features like Discover Weekly. This is a playlist that gets updated on a weekly basis that tells me what new releases have come up for me based on my listening history. I'm a huge music nerd. I listen to music all the time. I talk about it all the time. I have a podcast about music where I talk about music. I mean, this data is some of my most intimate data in a way. And yet, as far as I'm concerned, Spotify can have as much as it wants. I will answer any questions they have and provide any additional data they want because I can trust them to keep delivering valuable personal experiences that I want. So, what does this sort of thing look like in practice? We've got control and we've got value exchange. What can you offer someone for their data to build trust with them at the same time? Now, for each of these ideas and concepts of trust, I'm going to give you a few things to try based on how you feel your company is able to deliver on your brand promises. So for starters, it's trivially easy to offer a discount or a coupon in exchange for an email address and maybe an explicit opt-in to a newsletter. The value is easy to describe and understand in that case, right? This is fundamentally different from subscribe to our newsletter and you might possibly enjoy one of our emails by accident one day. This is give me your email address in exchange for direct quantifiable value. Now, from there, you can begin collecting those zero-party data points that we mentioned, this preference-oriented data to provide a personalized content experience. This sort of thing can often be done well in an onboarding process. Remember to provide customers a way to control their data and then deliver on your promise. Now, the hardest level, beyond just explicit value exchange and then a truly personalized content experience, is doing more of what Spotify is doing, which is leveraging behavioral and personal data for AI-driven recommendations. Doing this well is not trivial, even with all the data in the world at your disposal. But remember, accumulating all of that information relies on a trusted relationship between the consumer and the brand. You still have to have that data and you need trust in order to collect it. Now, we've touched a bit on this next concept, but let's go a little bit deeper to see the opportunity. Trust is transparency. Here's where you really begin to go past the technological and design-oriented aspects of trust generation and into the heart of a business's culture. Transparency is a bit like a muscle. in that you don't want to wait until you need to lift a car to save someone's life to start doing bicep curls. The time to go rip it in the gym was all the time prior to the moment where you need to lift the car. Similarly, a catastrophic event for a company like data loss or a security breach is not the best time to be trying out transparency for the first time, because it turns out situations like that are actually opportunities to gain trust through transparent communication, taking ownership, and caring for your customers. But you have to already know how to do that well. We see that 45% of consumers said a brand would never be able to regain their trust after displaying unethical behavior or suffering a controversy. And 58% say they don't trust a brand until after they've seen real-world proof that it's kept its promises. Now, in these data points, what I really want you to see is that at least half of buyers are willing to let you regain their trust after unethical behavior or suffering a controversy, and that 58% can conceptualize real-world proof that you're keeping your promises. So with clear communication and some follow-through, you can weather a PR disaster. Let's take a recent example. Zoom blew up in 2020 because everyone needed to use it. They also did an incredible job in that same year of dealing with tremendous security-related pressure. Instead of pretending that those security-related issues didn't exist or that the demands would go away eventually if they ignored them, they basically came out as a company and said, okay, yeah, everyone's right about this. We've got some things to work on and we can do better. Give us 90 days to fix it. They took ownership of the problem, and they gave people a time frame that allowed us to hold them accountable. Now, you can also be building trust well before anything like that happens. It's not a difficult thing to do. It just requires some cultural change, and depending on what you're changing, maybe some coordination with your legal department. DuckDuckGo, the privacy-focused search engine, is a great example of a company that proactively builds trust through transparency. So, even though it's a search engine that prioritizes that privacy, that culture of transparency that they have internally shows up everywhere, not just in the product itself. For example, if you take a look at their privacy policy, what you'll find is extremely readable, simple, non-legalese descriptions of everything you need to know. And it includes headings like why you should care and information not collected. Clarity like this is what feels like transparency to the customers that you want trusting you. So let's look at some real-world ways you can cultivate transparency that leads to trust. First, audit your customer communication and earnestly solicit feedback to improve every customer touch point. Don't just send out a survey and then let the results sit in a spreadsheet somewhere. Actually spend time engaging with your customers about making their lives better through your communication and transparency. Then tell them what you're going to do to make their lives better and show them how their feedback led to that change later on. Make the whole process of feedback and change transparent, especially to your best customers. Now, to go further into it and to wade into a little bit of scarier territory for people sometimes, start thinking about how you can be publicly transparent as a brand. For instance, try responding open and honestly to reviews or social media posts, whether they're super angry pants or really kind. Stop replying to negative tweets with check your DMs so that you can have a conversation with their complaint there, and instead have the conversation in public. Finally, a proven form of real transparency is to publish third-party research that verifies you're living out your brand promises. Remember that 58% say they want real-world proof. Well, give it to them to earn their trust. And if it turns out that you're not keeping your promises, then it's just time to go to work. You can be transparent about that too and gain trust then as well. Finally, trust is authentic social engagement. And I say authentic specifically because it's critical to understand that you can't just corporately virtue signal without any follow-up. Hopefully that's more clear than ever in the wake of the Black Lives Matter movement in 2020. A post on Instagram with some hashtags isn't authentic social engagement unless it's part of an intentional, funded program to engage with a community for the good of the cause. 81% of buyers cite a top factor in purchase consideration is whether or not they can trust the brand to do what's right. Now, the last several years have shown us, especially in America, that the concept of doing what's right is widely disputed. But what you can take from this is that customers are paying attention to what you do as a company and that your customer base should align with your values and vice versa. People want to believe in companies. In fact, nearly half of buyers believed that brands could do more to cure societal issues than governments themselves. And while that might be a little misguided and perhaps local to certain countries, it underscores the notion that businesses can in fact be more than just profit-generating machines for the wealthy, and that your customers want to come along with you in impacting the culture. Now, let me give you a couple of great examples of authentic social engagement. One is Dove, who started a paternity leave fund in an effort to raise over $1 million for American fathers over a span of 2 years. The fund provides fathers who don't have access to paternity leave with $5,000 grants so that they can be home to spend time with their new children after birth. And for those not from America, this sort of thing is necessary because our country does not protect the needs of new parents to raise their children after birth, and instead our country relies on the benevolence of the parents' employers to determine whether this critical part of a child's development can in fact involve one or more parents. So, Dove says, quote, working dads shouldn't have to choose between their children and a paycheck because when they take paternity leave, it benefits families, workplaces, and communities. Now, this is more than talk, and we know it because on Dove's own website, they commit to a specific amount of money in a specific time frame and give a specific plan about how they're dispersing the funds. That is transparency and authentic social engagement working together, building trust. Now, another example of authentic social engagement is Heineken, who teamed up with psychologist Dr. Helena Rubinstein, lead behavioral scientist at Innovia Technology, to run an experiment at 10 bars in Reading and Manchester in the UK. The experiment was to test the "When You Drive, Never Drink" campaign from Heineken. Dr. Rubinstein's team devised 20 individual prompts, such as promoting alternative alcohol-free drinks at the bar, incentivizing drivers by encouraging them to make a commitment not to drink, and then rewarding the whole group when the driver doesn't drink, placing informational prompts around and outside the bar, and leveraging social influence to make not drinking if driving more socially acceptable. Now, this is authentic and meaningful because Heineken makes beer. They're literally eating into their own profits by discouraging drinking by the designated driver. Their willingness as a company to see the bigger picture and meaningfully address it culturally is what fosters trust. So, how can you engage socially? Well, we'll use those same 3 levels that we've used so far. To start, empower your employees to donate their time and energy to causes that they care about. Salesforce participates in the Pledge 1% program, but the format isn't important. What is important is that you start by building trust with your own team first, dubbing them unofficial brand ambassadors by giving them time away from work and the money they need to impact their communities in a positive way. To push on this further, you can then empower your employees to speak out about issues that matter to them without fear of retribution from your company. It means your people can choose to show up as the fully human creatures they are with a wild array of genuine concerns, and you won't try to shut them up just because you don't like the way that they said it. This isn't about tolerating toxic or abusive people who might represent your company in public. It's about building trust by being a company that trusts its people. Finally, sometimes you may need to take a stance on an issue publicly, and it might even affect your company's bottom line. But your willingness to stand for the oppressed or push for societal change that benefits the underprivileged is honored by the people who want to trust your brand. And critically, it's an important way to be in our world. Authentic social engagement indicates that your company is able to understand that being motivated purely by profit and growth harms our collective reality, and that organizations of human beings are themselves powerful and can create change. When companies stepped up in 2020 to fill in for the horrendous government failure in many countries, we saw the real ways that businesses can in fact innovate and move quickly in a way that does impact society positively. Moving fast and breaking things is not how you build trust. Moving fast to fix things is. And isn't that the mark that you want to leave on the world, both individually and collectively with the communities that you're a part of? Trust in the future will be an indicator of who invested in humanity, in society, and in culture today. It just so happens that it'll also make your marketing more effective and your customer relationships more valuable.